All right, welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about how does this team fix its skill position issues. But before we get into it, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already. I'm a relatively new Broncos channel, so I would appreciate any likes, any shares, any comments. And overall, I just hope that I can, share my passion for the Broncos and pursue my dream of covering the team full time at some point. So that's basically what this is. And yeah, let's get right into it. So how does this team fix their skill position issues? So the running backs have been very inconsistent at best. I hope Audric Estime coming back will help this team. And Sean Payton even said in his press conference that he wants the team to, use Audric Estime a little more. So, yeah. But overall, I think the running backs have had collectively 2.5 good games because I count the Raiders game as like a half a game because they were bad the first half but good in the second half. But, yeah, the run game has basically been non-existent as far as, being what the team wants to do and what the identity of the team was supposed to be coming into the year. So, yeah. But wide receiver, it's been really tough sledding the past few years. Tight ends has been laughable every stretch of the way. We'll get into all these things, but they need more from everybody on offense in the building. It's so easy to sit here and just be like, okay, our running backs, our wide receivers, and our tight ends, they have not shown enough this year. And I agree with that. I agree with all that. But we also need more from Nix. We need more from Peyton. This is all, everybody has their hands in this right now. And, it's miraculous that we're 3-3 based on everything. But one thing you got to remember, we need to stay patient because Sean Payton, he took over this team, and I am very thrilled with the job he has done, considering that this roster was horrific. This roster was projected to be a 5.5 win team from Vegas, and they are now 3-3 with wins over a team that you have not beat in the past 8 tries, and a win over a really, really good Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. And, that rain game against the Jets, you showed a little bit of grit. But, yeah. But anyways, this runs deeper than a quick fix. I think organizationally, a lot of this is not working, and let's just talk about it real quick. This is not for a lack of investment. This team since 2019 has tried to draft and develop skill position dudes. We had, I think the draft before that was 2018, so that was Courtland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, Royce Freeman, and the only one who really became a mainstay was Courtland Sutton, and he's really been the only one who's been able to become a mainstay on this Broncos team since then. As far as skill position guys are concerned. But regardless, 2019, Noah Fant. 2020, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. 2022, Greg Dulcich. 2021, I completely skipped over that, Javonte Williams. 2023, Marvin Mims. Those are guys you spent a significant amount of capital into, and it's just inexcusable how bad the skill position room is or how bad all of them are just based on how much investment you have put into this. I know that it's not a ton of investment. Like, we haven't, just been firing darts at round 1 wide receivers over the past few years, but, you took one in 2020, and you haven't really spent capital on one since Mims, and he looks like a special teamer at very best. And we'll get into all this as well, but, a lot of the investment, it's gone towards the O-line. 4 out of the 5 starters are on their second contracts, and the biggest note is that Reynolds is the only skill position player besides Sutton that's on a second contract. So let's talk about this RB room real quick. Let's do a deep breakdown on all these guys. Javonte has not been the same player since blowing out his knee. His game in 2021 when he was a rookie coming into the NFL was, okay, he is going to punish you. He is going to run right at you. He is going to, make it hurt when you tackle him. And he has shown a little bit of that this year. It's not like last year where the dude is breaking literally 0 tackles. But now he has a fumbling problem. And he's our RB1. So that's just not good for our offense in general. And Jaleel McLaughlin, he is great in space. But the team, they get away from him in negative scripts. I don't really know why. I think that if you are going to go to a negative game script and, you want those reliable receivers out there, I think that you want Jaleel McLaughlin running routes. Like, I know that Javonte Williams has been one of the best pass-blocking running backs in the NFL this year, so I do have to give him credit on that because, honestly, that's going to provide some longevity and some leash onto his NFL career and just the Broncos in general. So, yeah, I got to give him some credit on that. I know that we shouldn't overlook that part of his game. But Jaleel McLaughlin, I think I would like to see more of him when times get tough and when it is tough sledding for the offense, because this team, I would much rather have the big play threat. I would much rather have the guy who can hit a home run and get chunk yardage if you hand him the ball. HB draw. 2nd and 8. Who are you going to trust? I trust Jalil over Javonte, first of all. But, yeah, so Espen, he's a power back. I hope that he can, kind of churn those legs and pick up some chunk yardage. While it's like, I don't know, 2nd and 6 or whatever, I'm hoping that he can get maybe 4 or 5. That'd be nice to see. We haven't really had a lot of that consistency this year, but yeah, I know he just had the knee problem, so it remains to be seen how he does. But Beatty, when he comes back, is also a question mark. He looked like he was going to be our future back this year, but then he has that back injury, that really bad back injury against the Jets week 4. So yeah, I don't really know. It just remains to be seen what he's like, because he is kind of a wild card later in the season. So wide receiver room. Sutton is a great wide receiver for a young quarterback, but he has his limitations. He is not a guy who you're going to target 10, 11 times a game. He is a great security blanket. He's a great, very forgiving 50-50 catch or 50-50 ball wide receiver. Even though they haven't really used that part of his game that much this year, I wish they'd use it a little more. He has his limitations. He has his limitations on what he is for the Denver Broncos. And, he is a good player. He is a good NFL caliber wide receiver. He is a wide receiver 1. Granted, he's a very low-end wide receiver 1, but he has his limitations. And Mims, this one really pains me because I expect a lot when we drafted Marvin Mims. I really liked his profile. I really liked who he was as a player at Oklahoma. But he's more of a special teamer than a wide receiver. And this one really confuses me because there were better route-running wide receivers available in the draft. There were guys like Josh Downs. There were guys like Tank Dell who went a little bit after Marvin Mims, who got drafted and are now main pieces of their passing offenses. And it looks like, Marvin Mims, he is very, very good at what he does. I won't discount that from him. He's very good at, what am I trying to think about? He is very good at being a special teamer. He's not really a guy who's going to run a lot of routes per game, though. And even when he does, it's pretty much only go routes. So I would like to see him on the field more. I think you want like a dynamic playmaker like him out on the field. But ultimately, I don't know. He just really hasn't gotten going as an NFL wide receiver yet. He had some really nice deep balls last year from Russell Wilson early on in the season, but we haven't seen a lot of that since then. But Josh Reynolds being out, that hurts us quite a bit. That hurts us quite a bit because Josh Reynolds is a very reliable player. And I think one of the big things that made him that made our offense work in week 3 against Tampa and week 5 against the Raiders was Josh Reynolds. And he was able to make those tough catches to bail Bo Nix out of some certain situations. But the other thing I'm wondering is, why is LJ Humphrey a semi-significant part of our passing offense? He's a good player. No, he's not a good player. He's a good blocking wide receiver, and he is a good yak guy, but he's not a guy who's just going to win consistently downfield. Ultimately, that's just what it boils down to. So the tight end room, oh boy. 79 receiving yards from the tight end room. That pretty much does it all. That is inexcusable production for a rookie tight end. You've gotten 2 first downs from your tight end position all year long, which I could not believe that when my eyes were laid on that stat. But so Adkins, Troutman, and Kroll, they are useful NFL bodies. They are like, you fill out your room in training camp sort of things, but they are not guys that you want running routes downfield. They are not difference makers in the passing game. They're good. They're competent blockers. I'd say that it's not like these guys punish it all. But, who was supposed to be that dynamic receiving threat playmaker was Greg Dulcich, and he has a whole different discussion. Because in 2022, when you look at him, I thought I had high expectations for him going into this year because I was like, okay, you look at what he did with a Nathaniel Hackett offense in 2022. He was good. He was really, really good. And he made a lot of plays that we haven't seen from the tight end position in a long time. But what it boils down to with Greg Dulcich, obviously you start with the injuries last year. He missed all of last season, had that hamstring problem, and then had that foot injury that did not allow him to come back at any point last year. And I think he's definitely a player that the Broncos could have used for their playoff push. But he's just a whole different discussion because we were expecting him to be our dynamic playmaker. And ultimately, I think what it boils down to is you start with the drops, you start with the injuries, and he's just a guy who, it's his first year with the Sean Payton offense. It's his first year in this, personnel grouping in this scheme because he missed all of last year. So, I don't know. That's just my theory. That's just what it boils down to. So far, I don't expect anything from him. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of him as the season went on and he started becoming not a game day inactive. But yeah, I'm just not really sure how to fix this because I'm pretty sure anything you could get would be an upgrade. Maybe you trade for Mark Andrews. I know it's been a tough year for him as well in Baltimore, but I don't know. There's just not really a lot of avenues to improving this room during the season because every NFL team rosters like 3 to 4 tight ends, and think about how little of those guys are actually difference makers in the receiving game. It's not many. So you're not going to really find that many vertical threats out there on free agency. But yeah, so how do you fix this? This team will barely look different unless they make a splash in free agency. This personnel grouping is what Knicks and Sean Payton are dealing with till the end of the year. You can obviously make a trade at the trade deadline for a guy, but it's probably only going to be for one player. So I don't know. What does it do sending I don't know. Let's say, what would be a good example? Let's say the Jets really want to cut bait with Mike Williams based on what happened at the end of last night. All right, so you send the 7th for Mike Williams. Now what? That's my question. And this team just needs to rethink their skill position philosophy in general. That's what I think this boils down to. I just have my doubts fundamentally, even if they draft a wide receiver round 1, because this has not been working for the past 5 or so years for the Broncos. Fant, Judy, Hamler, like those guys were supposed to be really good, and they didn't develop at all. Fant has become a usable body in Seattle, but even still, he hasn't played up to what he could have been just based on how insane his combine was and how good he was at Iowa. But yeah, so what I would do, I think in free agency, you just need to look to attack the wide receiver and tight end position. With tight end, I'm not talking about getting like that 1 year, $5 million guy like Manhurts that they got last year. I'm talking get a 3 for 21, get a 3 for 21 guy. Maybe Zach Ertz decides that he wants to, maybe he becomes available next year for the Commanders. I don't know why he would, but I don't know if he's on a 1 year deal. But just a player like that who could be a veteran presence for these wide receivers and tight ends. I think, in the wide receiver room, you should do the same thing. You should get a guy like I thought Josh Reynolds was a great pickup because he could mentor just a bunch of these young guys. And if you draft another one next year, then one of them's eventually going to win out and maybe not develop and become an ultimate difference maker, but one of them is going to win out. But yeah, I would also draft a running back after Javonte moves on. I don't expect Javonte to be back next year, but in the event that he does, then you could just draft a running back because running backs, I don't really think there's a whole lot that needs to be said about, developing these guys. It's not really a problem because however you come into the league as a running back is pretty much how you are going to be just in general in the NFL. But yeah, so that just basically does it for me. That's my insights to the skill position room, and that's how I think we should go about it. I just think organizationally, there's a lot to improve. I think how we coach them and how we develop them, I think all that needs to be looked at by Sean Payton this offseason. And yeah, so you just have to remember that there's 11 more games left with this certain team, with this certain personnel grouping. So I don't know, man. I just don't know. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you like, if you enjoy, have a good day and peace out.